Wog indeed, wog indeed. You want it? You ready for it? Here it comes. Wog! Day 2 of Orctober. And here we are, and you can see I've still got classic old hammer fantasy orcs in the slideshow. I meant to do some prep work today over there on over there. And by over there I mean my monitor, and by my monitor I mean my computer, and by my computer I mean the streaming software, to try and fix some things up. But I ended up having a really busy morning, and I wasn't able to get to that stuff because I had other priorities that needed my immediate attention. So here we are. I didn't even fix the slideshow to get the other slides that are in the directory into the slideshow. I didn't have time for that. So I even did the RT spelling for you. Oh yes, that's right, because one thing that maybe people don't know, but this book is not called Wog the Orcs, it's called Warg the Orcs. Because Wog used to have an R in it. I don't know if you can see it there. But if I throw it down here, there we go. Warg Orcs. Possibly the greatest Games Workshop publication ever in the history of publications. Because all it is lore, and miniatures and lore and beautiful artwork by Paul Bonner and Gary Chalk, and I think there's a bunch of Adrian Smith in here, and there's probably some Wayne England in here. Yep, there's some Wayne England right there. So yeah, just the greatest 40K publication of its era by far, and quite possibly the greatest 40K publication of any era. I'm not sure who would agree or argue. So I'm hoping I'm live here. I'm just going to double check. Just so you know, it's 2:02 or you are not live. I am live. Okay, I'm late. I was live. The slideshow was on around 12. Hey, listen. I can't even tell who's in here right now because my analytics are not working. So I have no idea who's watching. But I know I'm live. So that's a good thing. And I've been live for 4 minutes now. And it's 12:05. So you guys, you know, I'm running on orc time these days. For sure. Is that some lens flare? No, that's just light from there. I was like, oh, I can be like J.J. Abrams and direct my own dealie. So let's do what I was going to do today. And you can see what I've got on the painting table right now. I'm just going to turn the lights up a bit. Ooh, yeah. So that what is on the painting table becomes far more apparent. Yeah. Let's move these bases out of the way and such knots. So this is my priming stick, and I've had this for many years. And by that I mean like I've had this one for 8 or 9 years, but this is a way that I used to prime. So this is just a 1x1. And when I take the models off, I'll show it to you better. I'll sort of put it. I can lift it up here and put it in. So this is a 1x1. And I take 2 double-sided carpet tape that I buy at the hardware store. It's like $2 a roll, and that one roll will usually last me. I would say probably about 100 models, because you can see I've got quite a number of orcs on here. And here's what the roll looks like. And you can just buy that. I buy this at Home Hardware here in Toronto, and it's their own branded double-sided carpet tape. That's all you got to ask for when you go in. It's pretty, if you're doing plastic models, I can invert this. Because these are metal models and they're lead, I'm a little bit more wary to invert it, so when I spray it, I have to be more funky and flexible, right? Sorry, I just heard a weird noise, which I don't know if you heard or not. But anyways, so yeah, so these guys are just stuck on, so I'm just going to plink them off here and get them ready, because this is what I'm going to be painting for the foreseeable next little while. So this is, and I put all the original Space Orc Raiders on here, I believe, except for the champion. So I guess all the trooper models. So here's the guy with the heavy bolter, and I realized when I looked at this model, I think this is the first like shoulder slung heavy weapon in 40K, because the Marines up until that point they had them like the low slung one. The metal Marine with the heavy bolters, they got it low slung, and they didn't have shoulder mounted weapons until a little bit later. And I think they did some plasma cannons. So here we go. Here's another one. These are all sculpted by Kev Adams, the Goblin Master. And here's another guy. And what I'm going to do with these, they are right now, hey, Tired of Badab, we didn't see you live until about 12:03. Weird. But I'm live now, right? So yeah, so this is, so that's one of the troopers. So that's one of the ones that came in the box set. This is another one that came in the box set. And in case you're wondering, these were primed with, what is it, Ministorm or something, Mechanicus Standard Gray, which is a fairly neutral gray. It might be a little bit darker than neutral, but actually probably not. It's really neutral, but it does seem to have like a tint of almost like a blue-green in it. But it's, you know what, it's fantastic. I tend to paint over gray for the most part. Sometimes I will paint over black, sometimes I will paint over something lighter, especially if it's more consciously. So there you can see there's the priming bar, and you can see all the little where the bases were. And if I had smaller bases or I was exact enough, I could reuse these, but we won't do that. So then it just peels off to reveal the priming stick underneath, which again is just a 1x1, and I've had it for quite a while, so you can see it's got quite a bit of buildup of paint on it. And Games Workshop sells something like this. Go out and buy it. Yeah. Instead of going to your hardware store and spending $6 on a 1x1 and a roll of carpet tape, you know. So yeah, so I'm going to, so these orcs are going to have to end up looking like these orcs. So these orcs I realize are not quite all the way finished, but I wanted to show you these primed ones before I go back and touch up some of these. And I might today show you some of how I do my base coating and things like that, like how I choose what I'm going to do. These guys are kind of simple. They're grays and browns, and then accented with like yellows and reds, and then obviously their skin. I've got to finish painting the skin on him. I've got to finish these two little grots, Grotty 1 and Grotty 2. Poor little slave grots in their little steel onesies. And then some of these guys have some deets on them that need to be finished, like eyeballs and things like that. So I might get to that, but I think what I'll do is I'm trying to figure out how to prep stuff for ongoing projects. And I might have to do it off air, as sort of what I was doing with my Escher. Sorry, I just keep trying to roll in here, and it's complicated. It's a very heavy chair, and I'm on a carpet. And there's a mat on the carpet, but the chair just sinks into the mat, so it creates these just nice big ruts. So figuring out sort of how to pre-prep this stuff so that I can show you different things on stream. And I was doing a bit of that with the Escher, and I'm going to continue to do that with the Orcs. So probably this evening, if I get a chance, I will go in and get these guys to various stages. And then on Monday, well, I've got the whole weekend. That's right, it's Friday. So I'm going to do a show tomorrow morning, probably around like 9:30 in the morning. It's going to be called the Saturday Art Show, and it's not going to be formatted like this. It's going to be a lot more low key. I did one last week when I got some prints and stuff. So Luddite confirmed, yeah, exactly. Why use technology? I mean, if I was a real Luddite, I guess I'd be slapping the primer on with like a horse quills or something. I don't know. But yeah, so tomorrow I'll do that. And I think I decided that I'm going to go through some old Games Workshop art books, because last week I went and I just looked at some prints that I had got and stuff, some Ditter Lizzie and a print that I got from Trish Carden, which was awesome. And so tomorrow I think what I'll do is I'll grab out an art book, 9:30, 10 a.m.ish, and just have a nice low-key, quiet Saturday morning, look through the art book, discuss it, and stuff like that. But today's Orctober. So yeah, let's talk about painting these orcs. So the reason I'm doing them as blood axes is A, because I think blood axes are really cool. B, it means that I can tie in a lot of other random rogue trader stuff that doesn't really exist anymore. And specifically what I mean by that is like space pirates and adventurers. All that is sort of what the earliest version of Rogue Trader was all about. It was less about giant cataclysmic armies clashing in giant cataclysmic battles. That was the realm of epic, for sure. But 40k at the time. Oh, my little red dots disappeared. Well, I'll just have to remember that it's somewhere around this purple squelch. It's probably on the bottom of one of these orcs bases. I love this guy because I love his helmet. I kind of want to. So I'm looking at some of these models and thinking whether I want to save them for freebooters, because I'll talk about, before I get into painting, I'll talk about my plans for this Blood Axe army, which was what I was trying to do, and then I got distracted. So it's going to start off as a Blood Axe army, which fits best for these old Space Orc Raider models. These guys make great Blood Axes, because and they've got these silly little guns and stuff. But the later sort of presentation of the Blood Axes, they basically, like in second edition, you still had your clan units, but all Blood Axes were now commandos, and all. If you wanted plasma guns, you just took Bad Moon. So I think the second edition Codex really lost some of the flair of the Here We Go, but at the same time, the second edition sort of added a lot more defined roles and things like that, because it wanted you to make a mixed clan army, right? Which is something that they also did with Chaos. Is that in the original, you kind of made, like, you chose one Chaos God and you made an army for that one Chaos God, and then as the Chaos this is in fantasy battles, as the Chaos Warrior army sort of evolved, it became like all the powers sending their best champion together and then them fighting together. Back in the days, you would almost never have, a Tzeentch warband fighting alongside a Khorne warband. Your entire army would just be that Khorne warband or that Tzeentch warband. So things like that. So same thing with the Orcs. It used to be you picked one clan and that was your main army. And then you could, through the freebooters rules, you could add, now initially, so you could add basically other clan squads in. So if I wanted to have a squad of Goths with my blood axes, I can totally do that, right? Like I can take like another clan's list. Blood axes can't, though. Other clans refuse to work with blood axes, but what blood axes get is they get humans. So they get the advisor that I introduced you to yesterday, which is Kafka Dosadi, Inquisitor at Large, and then he will have a merry band of henchmen, which you're not going to see right now, but because that is another thing that you can include in the Blood Axe army. It's a special thing that they can do, is that they can take humans. Now, other clans can take humans too, but it's a different unit type, and it comes from the freebooters list. It can get confusing, and we're gonna go through it one day, maybe next week, when I have some more paint on these guys. I'll go through my master plan, and we'll actually start trying to roll out this list. So once I figure out I figured out who my warlord is, the model I'm going to use for him, the model I'm going to use for. So the great thing about knobs in Here We Go is there's like 4 levels of them. I think it goes big boss, or I think like the top, and then you get drill bosses. Let's find it here. I'll just find the Goth one because it's all the same. So the war boss is retinue. So you can get a clan boss, big boss, drill boss, boss, and you can see the differences in the stats here. So my clan boss will be my commissar, right? The guy riding on the buggy, he gets to be my clan boss, and he gets that sweet ballistic skill of 5 and that sweet toughness of 5, and you get those 2 wounds. So this clan boss is closer to what your current orc knobs would be like. And if you notice, look at that ballistic skill. So orcs used to have regular ballistic skill. It wasn't until 3rd edition that they decided that all orcs are ballistic skill 2. They just get more DACA, right? Which is cool. Which is a cool way to make them unique. And I liked it at the time, and I still do. But back here in these days, you didn't have a lot of special rules to build on army lists, so they just kind of put it into your stat line. So orcs were the same as everyone else, but there's no like super DACA rules and stuff. I mean, the depth of the game in Rogue Trader is different than the depth of the game in, say, 9th edition or any of the previous editions. It's just different. And if you like different, that's awesome. I'm actually, to say a kind word about current 40K, I think 9th edition is a huge improvement over 8th edition. I think 8th edition set back a lot of things, and it was a good sort of a restart, like a reboot, because they needed to reboot it from what had basically become the 3rd edition to 7th edition core mechanic, right? They decided that we've got to pull the trigger and invalidate everything and reboot the game, which is what they did with 8th edition. And now 9th edition, the Crusade stuff that I'm seeing is the most impressive part of the game to me, because as I said, the Eternal Chronicles, I'm all about the narrative gaming. All the gaming that I want to do on the channel will be narrative. And therefore, if I do 40k 9th edition content for the channel, it will be Crusade, because that's just really cool. I like the idea of having your key veteran units and tracking their progress and all that good stuff that comes with that, and then them unlocking abilities. And each codex is now looks like it's going to have its own like special abilities to unlock, and I can't wait to see what they do with the Eldar. I can't wait to see what they do with the Dark Eldar. I can't wait to see what they do with well, Space Marines are coming out, and I have my Mantis Warrior army, which I will show off at some point, but it won't be in October because they're not orcs. They fight orcs, they kill orcs, which for a lot of orcs is just as good. So yeah. I'm just gonna kick something real quick here, and then yeah, I sure am. Exhausting, eh? All right, so let's throw some paint onto one of these orcs. So I'm gonna start with this guy. So this is Dabaz. That's literally what it says on his base tab. It says Dabaz, and if you go and look in some of the older catalogs that he's in, he's listed as Dabaz, B-O-Z-Z, I think. I'm pretty sure. And and his shoulder pad says top on. So that's amazing. So I'm looking at his coat. And this is kind of what I like to do because I want to do these guys kind of unique. So I may just do a single orc a day, and we'll see how that goes. And like I said, I may, depending on how I get on prep work and stuff, I may prep some stuff ahead of time, because you don't need to see me apply the same gray base coat over and over and over again, right? So I like this jacket that he's wearing, and I think I want it to keep it kind of like, I like his pants gray, so I think I'll do his pants in the way that I was doing the gray on most of these guys. Like this, you can see the gray on him. And who's got really good gray armor? You got really good gray armor, and you're one of my favorite models. So he's sort of got the typical German battle gray going on there. And look at his little flamer. Oh, look at his little flamer tied to his back and everything. And something that I wouldn't normally do, which you may have noticed that I did on this model, is normally I wouldn't paint this hose like this fiery orange. But I just thought it looked cool, so I did it on him. And then the other guy who's got a flamer, who's this guy, I did it on him too. So I don't know how these orc flamers work, like if there's literally fire coming through the hose, but I just think it looks cool. And I'm sure the orcs would be like, oh, red hoses? Yeah, that's awesome. That just makes our fire DACA faster, right? So I'm going to go with gray, and I'm going to show you the basic gray that I'm going to use. Now, I think I'm going to do his jacket a little bit darker than the gray on his trousers. Trousers. So let's get out. I like this color. And again, I tend to gravitate more and more towards the Reaper Master Series paints these days. So this is a perfect, because it's called Dirty Gray. And I can't think of a better color for orcs to wear than a dirty gray. So I'm going to drop some dirty gray here in my palette. A decent amount of it. Make sure it's not too thin. I will say, because the Reaper ones are so flat, you do have to shake them a little bit more than normal. And I don't know if that just be a mental thing. You ready for the brush? You ready for the brush? There we go. Look at that. It's that brush that's missing half of it. What a fantastic brush. What a fantastic half a brush. Sorry, I'm just going to get some paper towels to put in front of me here to dry my brush off on. And we'll get some of this nice dirty gray. And we'll do his trousers. So I'm going to start in here, where you can see where where the primer has missed, because a lot of time when I'm priming, I'm able to turn the priming stick upside down. And like with plastic models, no problem. With a piece of double-sided carpet tape holding up like a pound of old lead orcs, and I'm priming out in the parking lot behind my building, I'm not turning it upside down at that point. I will leave it as is. I do believe I need to turn that off. So, how's that? So that's just the trousers, and then I'm going to do his coat. And I think what I will do is I'll grab some of this black. And I'll throw down a little dab of black beside the... come on, I just want a little dab. Just give me a little. Reminds me of Jerry Stiller in Zoolander. He's trying to make a pee-pee. Just give me a little pee-pee. Just give me a little. So sometimes you got to clear the nozzle. So that's what paper clips were made for. I mean, it wasn't what paper clips were made for, but it's certainly what I use paper clips for. So there we go. Just a little dab of black. That'll do. And then I'm going to take some of this, and I'm going to put it like that. And I'm going to take some of this, and I'm going to put it like that. And I'm going to zoom in just a little bit more because I think you guys deserve it. Yeah. So a little bit of black, and then this way he's going to have his coat, his jacket will be longer than the rest of it, but I still want to keep it gray. So maybe it'll look like a gabardine or something. Yeah. Whereas gabardine is a color. Gabardine's like a really dark green. I just always called like we had jackets in high school, where I went to high school. It was part of our uniform, and they were called gabardines. Hey chat, tell me. New Krieg list. Is that something I should... Is that what this is? Is that my orcs? My orcs are Krieg? Hey man, Blood Axe orcs would love to party with the Krieg. I'm sure that they would have lots of fun together. And this guy's got either hair or fur. So it's not fur, but I will do that, or it's not hair, so I'll do that as like fur when I get around to it. I just want to make sure that catch everything I need to, especially in here. Add a little bit more in there because, again, like I said, I missed the primer slightly. And then what's that? That's a holster. We've got some hoses under here. We'll get under his neck and around under his chin here, just in case. And then over here, just here in case, just so that there's some shadow there. There we go. All right. So before I wash all that, because I'll end up washing a lot of this all at once, I'm going to do his leggings. So he doesn't have boots. He has wraps. A lot of the models tend to have wraps on their feet. And I'm going to use this khaki for that, because that's what I use on the other models. And I said you weren't talking about things you're looking forward to in New 40K. I said new Krieg list. See, it's hard for me to... Chat is hard, because by the time I see it, it's like, oh, that was a topic like 5 minutes ago. New Krieg list? Yeah, man. Here's my question, though, about the new Krieg list. How much Krieg stuff does Forge World currently produce? How much stuff have they discontinued? Are they just running down stock? Have they... Because, I mean, right now, I'm assuming in 9th edition, was there a Krieg list in the Imperial Armor, Index Imperial Armors that Forge World put out? Or was it just... Because really all they need to do, if you want to incorporate the Krieg, and what I hope that they do. So let's talk about new 40K and what I hope they're going to do with the new codexes. Because what I see with the Marine codexes, they're trying to put as many of the core rules into the codexes as possible so that you run your army off a codex, right? So Space Marines are going to run out of the Space Marine codex, and then like they've done in the past, they make expansion codexes for... So if there was a list in the Imperial Armor, I think they posted something about how they're doing a new revised Imperial Armor thing. So I wouldn't be surprised if they're in there. What would be really cool is if they're actually in the Imperial Guard Codex. So whenever they get around to doing the Astra Militarum Codex, and they have the because you have like the whole build your own chapter, like you choose your own chapter trait sort of thing. So why not build your own guard regiment, and then why not build it in so that all of the rules that the Krieg would potentially have would be available as options for a build your own guard regiment. it's not, doesn't make them necessarily as special, but it helps to align them with the main rules, and then they become core, right? They become part of the core system, and then you don't have to have Death Corps of Krieg models to play Death Corps of Krieg. You can just use any Imperial Guard and just say they are the Janissary 14th, 7th, whatever, right? And then what they can do is then it's just the exact same rules, right? They're all like, you give them like some like weird quartermaster rule and like the life is cheap rule and the, I don't know, whatever. Or Forge World will just put them in the new Imperial Armor book. So they brought some stuff back into production. So obviously Death Corps of Krieg are going to have their own list. It will be interesting to see how that list jives when they do get around to making the new Guard Codex. Because here's what I suspect they might do. Is they might say, use the Imperial Guard Codex, and then here are additional units, as opposed to like, here's the whole list. I don't know if that's how it was done in the index. I assume that's how it was done in the index. Like, basic guys were basic guardsmen should be basic guardsmen, right? And I kind of, I think I talked about this on stream. When I first worked for Games Workshop, it was around the time that the Imperial Guard Codex, the 2nd edition Imperial Guard Codex, was released. I'm gonna do his flesh now. So I'm just gonna show you how I block out the colors. So the Imperial Guard Codex was released, and we got pre-release models of the Catachan Jungle Fighters. And this is before we had seen any media on them at all. We basically received a box at the store, and inside the box was a was 10 Catachan Jungle Fighter miniatures, just loose models inside the box. From mail order UK, and that was basically coming from Games Workshop for us to paint up for the store. We hadn't seen any media on these yet. We had no idea what they were, other than that they were Catachan Jungle Fighters. And so we were all speculating, like, oh man, it's gonna be so cool. They're gonna have these like cool like Jungle Fighter rules, and look at those big bulging muscles. They're clearly gonna be strength 4 guardsmen, maybe even toughness 4 guardsmen. And then they came out and they were just guardsmen, right? And there wasn't really anything special or unique about them being guardsmen. They didn't have like crazy ambush rules or crazy commando rules. They were just guardsmen. So yeah, and they were like the only guardsmen for a while, because the Cadians then came out. I think the Catachans were first. Excuse me, I'm gonna sneeze. And make sure I unmute my mic. Yeah. So there was a lot, and that's sort of how I feel about a lot of stuff that happened in 2nd edition. I think 2nd edition really started to get better. Well, some codexes were fantastic, and some codexes in 2nd edition were passable. The fantastic codexes for me would be Eldar, because it has an appendix in the back which allows you to do things like Exodites and Corsairs, and it had everything that you wanted out of the Eldar army list at the time. All your aspect warriors, your Farseers, your warlocks, all that good stuff. Harlequins were in there, all that good stuff. And the Chaos Space Marine Codex. So the Chaos Codex for 2nd edition 40K, to me, is the high watermark of that era. There was no book better as an exemplar of what they were able to do in 2nd edition. I was guessing Kriegs were Forge World best-selling line before the Horus Heresy. Well, what else did they... Yeah, I guess I would assume that that's true, because I think that, A, they have a very classical, prototypical Imperial Guard. Like, a lot, when you think grim, dark Imperial Guard, you think of what a Death Corps of Krieg guy looks like. Not necessarily Death Corps of Krieg, because we had sort of like greatcoat, armed, masked guardsmen in artwork previous, especially the Necromunda 8th, the spiders were like that. They had like greatcoats, las guns, and like sort of big pot helmets. And I think a lot of people might have thought that Forge World would do that, but then they created Krieg instead, and because Forge World's full of creative people, so they're going to create things, right? And that's great. How are we going to do that fur and that leather and that stuff? Okay, so leather we'll do brown. This shoulder pad I want to do bright red because I think it'll look good. And then where it says top on, I'll do that in like orange or yellow. This shoulder pad, I guess, will be a lighter shade of. We'll do some leather. So let's plot out some leather here. I'm literally just blocking out all the basic colors for you here, so you can see how I'm gonna do most of these guys, how they're going to wind up. But again, orcs have a real sense of uniqueness. So that's there, and then his belt. So his belt comes up here. One day I should show you the Death Corps orc army my bud made, all orcs in trench coats and gas masks. Did he use Cromlech bits for that, or did he custom build them all? Because Cromlech makes a whole range of Panzorks. I don't know if they call them Panzorks, but generally orcs that are like German themed I tend to call Panzorks, which is kind of yeah what I'm doing with these blood axes, but at the same time they're blood axes, right? I may end up doing a few of the knob models and a few of them in really garish camouflages, because that's sort of like another distinction of the blood axes. So I might do like a squad like that, of just blood axe boys, and have them like be really colorful but camouflage. I think that would look cool, like a red and yellow camouflage, or like, you know, something really ridiculous, purple and green camouflage. Like, why not, right? We'll do this bracelet here in leather. Sure, why not, eh? And a little happy cloud over here. Happy mistakes make happy clouds. Yeah. So there we go. So we've done the leather. And I'm going to do this shoulder pad in that same leather, so it looks like it's just a big piece of padded armor. And then the other shoulder pad we'll do in red. And then we'll probably wash it at that point. And then start to actually paint everything else. So one of the things that I will say about newer models versus older models paint up way faster, because there's less small detail on them, and the detail that is there tends to be large and exaggerated, so it's easily identifiable and accessible. And plotting out what you're going to do with it is super easy. So now it's washing time. So I'm going to figure out everything that I'm going to do in strong tone and dark tone. So I'm going to do his coat. Now, if I do his coat in dark tone, his coat's going to look black. Which in dark tone being the black wash. So again, I'm going to do my favorite thing, which is mixing dark and strong tone together. And this I'll be able to use for quite a bit of the model, actually. And I always go usually 2-to-1, dark tone versus strong tone. You don't need a lot of dark tone. All I want to do is make the strong tone a little darker and blacker. And now, because I'm using this, and I will pretty much wash most of his clothing with it. So I can just start right at the feet, and you'll see what happens. Boom. So, anyone got any big hot plans for the weekend? Tyler, mostly Cromlech, but a lot of Forge World Orc bits too. Have you checked out all the new Cromlech Orc stuff lately? Amazing. Yeah, it is really fantastic. And I keep looking at some of the vehicles and stuff and wondering if they need to be in my life. I almost, and in fact it was what stopped me from doing it, was Rogue Trader Orcs. I almost started a 40k Orc army for 9th edition. I was making plans for it. I was ready to execute on purchasing plastic and roll on it. I had a theme and an idea in mind for it. And then all of a sudden, lo and behold, the great miniature symmetry provided a bunch of Rogue Trader Orcs that came into my life, and the rest is history, because I immediately decided I have no interest in doing a 9th edition 40k Orc army at the moment. I have, oops, that's okay. I have much interest in assembling and painting a Rogue Trader Orc army, which you are now watching me paint. So it's amazing how the universe provides sometimes. So, and if you're watching this in the future, and my Orc army is the greatest thing you've ever seen, you need to see more stuff. So here we go. The Stompas, man! It would be fun for you to paint a classic Orc with classic paints one day. Give me some classic paints. You can buy old paint sets on eBay. You can order them from... I think you can still order the original Games Workshop range from Cote d'Arms in the UK, because they made the paints originally and they had the formulations for it. I'm going to go under his neck here. Like so. And get these things. I guess those are his little grenade pouches. You notice on the new Space Marines, this is something that kind of irked me on the new Primaris Marines. Mainly just on the new Intercessors, is the accessories for their belts. They gave them, like, grenade pouches. And I have to think, like, isn't a pouch an inconvenient, like... That's another layer you have to go through in order to extract a grenade to throw at someone. Wouldn't it be better just to have the grenade magnetically clamped to the side of your power armor, like everything else I assume is? I assume that, you know, you don't need a holster for a bolt pistol, you just mag clamp it to the side. And that's what we used to do back in the day, when we didn't really have holster bits. We would just, and we wanted a model to have a bolt pistol, we just glue it to his leg. And I just always assumed it was just magnetically clamped. But magnets, how do they work, right? The Stompas classic Orc with paint, though they're not the same. So there you go, Tyler. Buy me the Citadel color set. Buy me the Citadel creature, the Citadel expert, and the Citadel monster set. Then find the Eldar and Orcs paint set, and I will probably also require the Space Marine paint set and the metallic paint set. So, good luck finding those, and I require them new in box and still in the shrink wrap. I don't want any seals on any of the pots broken. It's got to be pristine. So your mission, your quest today is go to eBay and buy that for me. If you want to see me paint old Orcs with old paints. I don't know why. I've got so many good new paints. I do a shoulder pad, so here's my favorite rusty red. And that'll be for his one big shoulder pad here that says top on. Take a little bit of water because it comes out pretty thick. It is one of the HD pigment paints. So, and the great thing about those HD pigment paints, so those are the ones with the yellow labels. And then there's the ones with the white labels, which are just the regular Master Series. The ones with the yellow labels, you can water them down for days. You can just keep adding water to them, and their coverage remains excellent. Like, I added quite a bit of water to this, and you can see the coverage remains excellent. So if you like paints that you can, that you get really good flow out of, but at the same time they maintain a really high level of coverage, Reaper Master Series HD, baby. High density pigments. I don't know what that means, but it sounds good, and it's convinced me that it's cool. And I really like using them, to the point where, like I said earlier in this stream, you know, at one point I will stop saying, I think I've already said this on stream, and I'll just resign myself to the fact that I'm going to repeat myself a lot. Yeah, so there's his shoulder pad. And you can see it says top on there. I'm actually just going to put red paint over that too, because I'm going to wash that whole thing. And then I'll pick out the letters with yellow, or even and probably make that yellow really light. So I'll probably bring it up to white. Now, so there's a shoulder pad. So I'm going to wash his skin now. And like I said, for the Orc Flesh shade, I tend to use a soft tone ink. I go back over with Flesh shade after I've highlighted it. I find that if I go Reichland Flesh shade right over the green, it looks a little funky. So this is soft tone. and it's basically lighter than the strong tone. There is one tone that goes even lighter, and surprisingly enough, it's called light tone. So you can see here's the 4. Strong, soft, light, and dark. So that's your universal shading system of those 4. For doing the grit and grimy Eternal Chronicles way of painting, you just need those. So there we go. So you can see it's going in there. It's helping to pick out his flesh. I'll make sure that the knuckles are nicely defined. And then the back here. And then the under here. And then in there. And again, it's just going to sink into the cracks and provide me with shadows that allow me to cheat when I paint the rest of it. I may not have put enough wash on my wet palette here to do all of his skin. Yeah, let's throw a little bit more down there. So, where's the Escher? It's October! Sorry! No Escher today, Betty. They're gone. We're just painting orcs. Yeah. And if you don't like it, you can something. Yeah. There we go. That wasn't too cringy, was it? And we'll grab his face here, and then there. So again, this is basic blocking for the most part. Of just I'm laying down the colors, then I'm washing it all, and then I'll just highlight it. And I tend to do metallics after. I tend to do metallics last because what I want to do is I want to get everything else done. And I just like sprinkled water all over the model, which was probably not. I'm a little bit too much gesticulation, I think. That's fine. Orctober is a fake Hallmark holiday designed to sell greenskins, and it works. It works. Don't take this month away from me and my people. How dare you? What's with all these paints? What's wrong with these paints? Advanced paints, aka yeah, exactly. So yeah, there we go. And what I was saying. So I tend to do anything that's not metallic. I'll do that first for the most part. Then I will go back in. Once this is all dry, I can go back in with the metallics. I got to figure out what I can do with scabbard. It'll probably just be black. Because I want it to be something different than the rest of the leather. So just drop a little bit mo of that flat black, and I'll add a little tiny bit of the dirty gray into it, and just do that. And that may blend in too well with the with his coat, but we can change. We can just you fix that by picking a different way of highlighting it, right? Like his coat, I'm gonna highlight up through some really warm grays to like a beige-ish, so it looks like a worn, like weather-beaten gabardine or whatever. But the scabbard I will highlight up with like blue-gray, so it looks more like a scabbard, a black leather scabbard. So the only other thing I need to do is that shoulder pad, and I use get out my secret weapon here, which is the red-black wash by Secret Weapon, which I use profusely these days when I'm doing red, because I think the way that I do red now is evolved from the way that I used to do red, and pardon-moi. And it changes when I discover sort of like new formulations. So I discovered that this black red goes really well over this Reaper Rust red, and then when I highlight it with like ochres and oranges, it looks really nice. At least I like the way it looks. And if you go to my website, eternalchronicles.ca, and you go into the gallery halls, and you go into the Hall of the Goblin King there, you'll see my Age of Sigmar Iron Jaws, and that's where I first developed that red, and now I've since gone back and done all my reds like that. So now that's sort of the way I do red for my orcs, which has changed than the way I used to do red for my orcs. And you can probably see examples of that in the same Hall of the Goblin King, because you'll see some of my 6th edition orc stuff and you can see the red that I did on that. It's a much darker red, a much less less vibrant, much more of a muted crimson than the bright sort of colorful red I do now. So yeah, okay. He's gonna need to dry, so I will just grab another model at random and do something to him. This guy needs his teethed, so I'm gonna get out. Oh, here, we'll use this brush. Fantastic, fantastic. And I'm gonna take some of that soft tone that I was using to wash him from here, and I'm gonna wash this guy's teeth with it. So teethy, 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 teethy. Making sure to pay particular attention to getting it inside the little cracks there, because that's, again, it's gonna help. It's gonna help define the tooth and the jaw and the mouth and all of that. So yeah, there we go. And then who else needs some teethy love here? You do. So again, just washing it to help pick it out. How about you, buddy? Yes? Question mark. Let's see what we can do here to. Yeah. Okay. And you ain't got no teeth. You need to have your skin painted. You got teeth. Aren't these models great? I mean, just look at how haphazard and ridiculous this model is. He is absolutely a ridiculous orc. I also need to do their eyes. So that's another thing that I will work on. Alright. Who else? Got a bunch of guys over here. You. Teehee. And you. No, you're done. Nice. How about you, Johnny Boombox? Yep. One thing I love about fond memories of old Warhammer, because you had less models generally, they all were more significant in game. Like I can remember painting or playing with Harlequins, and they're always like the few models that were my favorites. I love the Solitaire with the little like with the neurodisruptor gun that looks like it was just made out of crystal. So cool. And the Harlequin's Kiss. When someone at the Silver Snail explained to me what a Harlequin's Kiss did, at that point I thought it was the coolest weapon ever in the history of all weapons. I was just like, that's fantastic. And this guy here, so this is the guy that we painted yesterday. So I'm just gonna wash his teeth, even though it looks like I've already washed his bottom lip with stuff. But yeah, we want to pick that out around there. Yep. All right. So now I'm just going to grab some of that Tusk Ivory again. The blender. Guido is eternal. Where is he? I need to find that model. I know I still have him. I need to find that model. Tusk Ivory. Come on. Give me a little bit. There we go. And I'm going to get an even smaller brush that I'm going to get for this. I'm going to go with the 000 that you guys know and love. And then it's pretty simple stuff. Just the tips. Just the tips. Teehee. Yeah, you don't have any teeth. You do. Just the tips. Here we go. These guys need their eyes to be done as well, for the most part. I don't like the end of this. I don't like what I kind of was trying to do something classic, like old school kind of look for the blade of the power axe, and I don't like how this looks. So I will probably end up repainting that at some point. Nope. Yep. Like that. And you can see I moved them from one side of the table to the other. That way I know that I've done what I was doing on them. And that's just, again, that's an old habit based on assembly lining models for so long. So much assembly lining in my life. Something which I'm not really a huge fan of. I kind of prefer to work on 1 or 2 models at a time. Mainly because I always like to have like 2 models on my table if I'm doing something like that. And generally it's like one that I'm really like working on, paying attention to, and the other one I'll just use a space filler while I'm waiting for something to cure on the main one that I'm working on. So I do that a lot, but that is usually when I'm painting more models that I'm using as like a centerpiece or as something really significant to something that I want to do a really good paint job on. Not saying I don't want to do a really good paint job on these orcs, but at the same time, there's a lot of things on these orcs that can be assembly lined through to get done. And then you'll notice, and I was going to bring this up at some point, so I'll bring it up right now. This guy needs to have his flesh finished, so I'm going to finish his flesh. You'll notice that none of my bases are done, and that's around 2009 when I started to work on my Warhammer 40k 5th edition Chaos Space Marine Army, the Red Corsairs. And I'm just putting some down, that bright skin down, because I'm going to work on this guy's flesh. The Red Corsairs. Every single one of them had like a really detailed custom base on it. And so at that point, from that point on, I did the bases on the models first and then painted the models after. It may seem like a backwards way to do it, but the way that I tend to paint bases, and just to show you an example of what I'm talking about, like this base has been heavily dry brushed. So this base was painted. It wasn't finished, but it was painted before I painted the rest of the model. So the gray, which is just a piece of cork that I glued down and then washed with washed with white glue, watered down white glue, 2 layers, and then sanded around here, so ballast, and then washed again with white glue, so for a total of 2 layers. And then I dry brushed it so that any paint that got off of here onto here wouldn't matter because I was going to paint over it anyways, right? So it allowed me to rough out the bases really fast before I paint the model. Like here's an example of a work in progress sort of thing. So this base, even though he's on a flying stand and he can actually come off, he's not glued on yet. I stand corrected. That will have to be pinned now. You just watched me break a model on stream? Yeah, you just watched me break a base peg on stream. But you can see I've got the base peg jammed into all this cork, which I glued down. So this was actually finished first before I even put paint to this model. When did I glue him? He's not finished yet. Why would I glue him? Anyways, that would need to be pinned at regardless anyways. Any other examples of something like that? Ooh. Here's a base that's unfinished, more or less, because it was base coated for another model, and then I ripped it off the other model and used it for this guy, who I am in the process of repainting. I have photos of his original paint job and his original base. I have his original base somewhere. But I decided to strip him and repaint him just because I love this model, and it's got all my favorite looking options for the old Bloodthirster. So I love this head and this whip arm with the 2 whips, and then this axe. This axe of corn is fantastic. So, and I'm pretty happy with the way he's coming out so far. He still needs a bunch of work on detail on his face and stuff. But I digress. It's Orctober, not Blood June. Okay. So instead, let's paint Orc Flesh. So this is another guy who's got a flamer. And again, I'm just going back over with the Reaper Meadow Green, which is not the same green. It's a much brighter green than I've been using traditionally recently. My Fantasy Old Hammer Orcs, the skin that I use for them is actually a Russian. I think it's called Russian green, and it is a Vallejo model color. Boom. No, not that one. Here. Nope, that's brown violet. Anyways, the other green that I use for the orcs is the Orc Flesh. Here we are, yeah. Is this Russian uniform World War II, which I had left over from working on World War II Russians for bolt action. So I started to use this in much the same way that I'm using the meadow green, blending it with the bright flesh. But this has a slightly different finish than the meadow green. You can see the meadow green is much brighter and more vibrant, whereas this is a lot more muted. And I like that look for the Old Hammer Orcs. And that was actually initially developed, again, for my Iron Jaws. If you go and look at my Iron Jaws, you can see that the paint that I painted their flesh with is that Russian uniform. But this is Rogue Trader. This is 40K. So I want these guys to be a little bit brighter, I think, is the name of the game here. So again, get his ear. And this is the time to like fix these errors here where I've got paint that has bled onto the model from elsewhere. Do the back of his neck. Do his elbow here. And again, it doesn't have to be super exacting. You're just trying to pick out, you're trying to put the base coat back on, essentially. I'm putting the base coat back on over the base coat in the wash, and that's sort of what I talked about the other day with building up successive layers of highlighting over a base coat that's been washed, because that really helps to give you depth to your paint, right? And that's what you want, and you want to show the stress and the variances of where the different body parts are. And I talk about like the knuckles going white when you make a fist sort of thing. So we'll take some of our bright and we'll mix in some of that bright, and we're gonna do it again one more time, this time paying close attention to being a little bit more delicate with the application. Fingers. And let me tell you, kids, when you've painted as many models as I have, a lot of this just becomes so beyond second nature. You know, I've often joked that I think I could paint a Space Marine with my eyes closed. And maybe I'll do that on stream one day. I'll paint a Space Marine with my eyes closed. Would you like to see that? Are you not entertained by me painting a Space Marine with my eyes closed? Because I think I could do it. I honestly think I could competently... I mean, it might look ridiculous, but I'm prepared to try it. Lord knows I've got enough spare Space Marines lying around. I would probably do like a Space Marine from like the 3rd edition era tactical squad or something, because those are plentiful, and I'm sure I could assemble one pretty easily. Or I could go balls to the wall and do like a resin cast Forge World Space Marine and paint it with my eyes closed. This elf on an eagle is also not an orc. See, you're right, Tyler. And that's why he deserved to be broken. Because really, how dare he? How dare he appear on stream in the sacred month of October? You deserve to have your base peg broken, and I will not pin you back together until November. All right, back to Knuckles. Back to painting Knuckles. And elbows. And you can see I kind of left his face because I'm just going to do that last. Because it's good to see how the rest of the model comes up. And by comes up, I mean finishes up being highlighted. To see that. Yeah. Yeah, baby, yeah. Now he's coming together. That's right. Add that flesh. Paint those knuckles. Paint those finger joints. Get some. let's do his face. So his face is pretty simple because it's only this much of it. So I'm going to take some of just my green, but I will drag it across into the realm where I had the bright flesh so that it's a little bit lighter. And then I'm going to just like do these like striations, like little tiny things. And I'm pulling away from the shadow, which would be under the visor here. And then the chin, same thing, just little ticks with the brush, little kisses. Smooch, 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 smooch. Now I'm going to add some more of the flesh and do his lip again here, and you'll see it's mostly flesh at this point. And then I'm going to add a bit of green back into it, so it's going to darken up a bit, but not too much. And then I'm going to go over here and hit just this part of it. So where it sort of goes into his gun, I'm going to leave it, and I'm going to highlight here because this is sort of the corner of his face that would be facing out the most. So I want it to be nice and light there. And then I'm going to go across the bottom, just above his lower lip, so basically where his upper lip comes in, and I'm just going to add a tiny, tiny bit of highlight there, just so that that upper lip sticks out. And then I'm going to do the tips of his ears, and you can see that this is almost pure bright flesh, but it's still got a tint of that green in it. And then I put it on thin enough. I can see his spine here. I'm going to do his little spinal, little bits of spinal column sticking out there. So that's his back of his neck bones, 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 bones. And that's his skin, pretty much. Don't need to paint his eyes. He does have a tooth. He's got a single tooth. So we'll hit that right over here with some, yeah. And then we'll let that dry, and then we'll go in and we'll hit it with the Reikland Flesh shade to bring out the lip, and then probably, or maybe inside the ears, I'll put a little bit of flesh shade in there. But other than that, that's his flesh done. And I gotta figure out what color his visor is gonna be. I should do a gold like Geordie LaForge. Just give him a gold visor in there. I could even like put like little striations, like little stripes in there, so it looks graded, like Geordie LaForge's hair clip, which was the prototype for that. I think my sister had one, and I think I wore it. It was like an eye thing once. Star Trek. Oh, Star Trek. So yeah, so that's how to paint orcs the Orctober Eternal Chronicles way. Let's go back and take a look at our dude here and see how cured he is. Get the hammer, smash that elf. Gork demands it, or Mork demands it. You know what? They demand a lot. And sometimes I just want to do things for myself, you know? Sometimes I just want to raze that village to the ground for me. Not because Gork and Mork told me to do it. Let's take some of that wash and throw it up here. That'll really help define that as black, because it'll be darker than everything else. I can do the leather now. So the way I highlight leather is pretty simple. So here's the leather that I was using, and that is just Army Painter Leather Brown. What do you know? So I'm going to keep that leather brown, but then I'm going to take some Army Painter, and I'm using Army Painter for this, but I could just as well use the tusk ivory, but the Army Painter skeleton bone is a little bit more appropriate for mixing with Army Painters because they both have the same sort of finish consistency. Not that I won't readily mix opposing brands of paint. I do it all the time. I just have a system and a habit for doing this way. So I understand how these two paints work together, I suppose. So my analytics are still like completely blah. It's literally saying that no one's watching and the only playback is me. So and I know you guys are out there, so I'm just going to assume that YouTube doesn't know what it's doing. I guess I shouldn't say that because they'll come get me. So I've just lightened up. You can see I just sort of took a little bit of that and put it in here. I'm trying to do this while staring at my monitor, blending this. Make it just a little bit lighter, and that's just going to go across like this, and then across like this. to help. Again, this is just to pick out the details, really. 1, 2, 3, just like so. If you see somewhere where it just needs a little bit more, just give it that little bit more. And then as for the rest of the leather, you can see the top of his belt kind of comes along like this. So I'm just going to hit the top and then just down here. And then as for the shoulder pad, I'm going to go around the edges. You can sort of see here, and like so. And then his little holster here. Hit the front of it. Like so. Oh, how's that looking? And then up here. And like so. And then a little bit more of just the skeleton. With whatever's already on the brush, so you can see, I can see over here how light this is going to come out, more or less. I can get a good look at it. And then again with the skeleton, and this time I'm just going to go across here, and like that, just so that it. I might even go back in and wash it down in parts. Just on that shoulder pad, because it looks a little. All right, there we go. There we go. And then on the back here, again, mostly skeleton, but still, I haven't cleaned the brush or anything, so there's still going to be some leather paint mixed in there. And I'm just going to hit these again, even lighter than the first time I went through, and try and catch less area as I do this, so it just helps to define those and pick those out. Now I will clean my brush. Now I'm going to switch brushes. I'm going to switch back to old Halfy brush here. Oh, but I'm half the brush I used to be. Yeah, well, you're going to be useful for what I'm about to do. And what I'm about to do is sort of like a wet overbrushing for the wraps on his legs. Because this orc can't afford boots. He spent all his money on his fancy shoulder pad and cannot afford boots. Spent all his teeth on a fancy shoulder pad. And didn't think, hey, maybe I'll need boots. How's this look? There we go. And again, just really light feather touching around the edges. I guess I was talking about basing, and there was a reason why I was talking about basing, because if you notice, my orcs are not based, because I'm not sure how I'm going to base them yet. I may just do them basic sand. I may do them in the Rogue Trader style, so I may do them green. What I consider like the Goblin green bases is really a 2nd edition and onward style. The Rogue Trader style could be anything. What I think I'm going to do is I need to figure out what the surface of Logan's World is going to look like. And I'm thinking it's Badlands. Now I have a Badlands table, or I have a Badlands game mat. I'm not sure. I think it's a fat mat or an FLG mat, Badlands. And it's a 6x4, so it's too big for what I want to do, how I want to do Logan's World. But it's Badlands, and it's a little too verdant. It's got, even for Badlands, it's got a little bit too much. There are other mats that I've seen, like there's some junkyard mats. There's even some Games Workshop things. I think it would be cool, to make some kind of a table mat that would be great for whatever I'm going to do. So I have some stuff that I can use for Logan's World already. I have a lot of Badlands scenery because I built a Realm of Beasts table for Age of Sigmar. So, but I'm going to get a new basic mat for it. Who are you going to play RT with? Well, I've got 2 people roped into it right now. and they're both on notice that they need to get models ready, and that's Ash over at Guerrilla Miniature Games, and my buddy Alex, who's probably in the chat here somewhere. He was chatting earlier. He's got to paint some Rogue Trader stuff, and then what I want to do is do a little mini Rogue Trader campaign, a little narrative campaign. Yeah. And if anyone else has Rogue Trader models and they'd like to play some Rogue Trader, and you want to come over to Logan's World and throw down, I think that would be delightful. Obviously, we are in a situation where we're not allowed to. I think we're moving into the second wave now, so yada yada yada. We're all, who knows? I was talking to a parent today when I was dropping my daughter off at school, and we sort of agreed that, like, every day is a victory. Like, every week that the kids are still in school is a small victory. And we'll see how much longer the kids are in school, because ideally they'll be in school for the rest of the year. Do I think that's necessarily going to happen? We're heading into flu season, right? So we're heading into the colder temperature, which means that this is where viruses and such, that's their playground, right? So I think things are going to get worse before they get better, is all I can kind of think at this point. I don't want to talk. I don't want to get into sort of specifics on, how prepared we are for it this time, because I think we are more prepared. I also think we have a better handle on how to treat it. The fatality, the stats for the fatalities have certainly. There's a lot less people that are terminal getting this thing, right? Which we should look at as a huge positive and a huge achievement in some ways, I guess. I don't know. I mean, what bothers me is just how politicized everything has become, and it almost makes it difficult to talk about, right? When we should be having very frank and plain discussions about preparedness for this kind of stuff, right? And having very frank discussions on, did we overreact? I think, it behooves us to take an abundance of caution. But at the same time, the numbers that were speculated, the models that sort of said, well, this is what we can expect, tended to be pretty wrong. And you can sort of see where those wrong, where they went really wrong. So we need to look at what worked, and we need to look at what didn't work, and we need to be able to have frank and honest discussions about that without it becoming politically charged. And that's all I'm going to say on that, because I just want to talk about orcs, and I know that current events are one of those things that I will discuss, but at the same time, it's important for me only because of having a kid and the significance of what that means for her, because, man, the kid's got to be in school, and not just for the education. They got to be in school because they need the social interaction with other children. I think I mentioned when I was it was chat thing. So at my daughter's school, the daycare workers wear like a mask, and then they wear a face shield, and then they have a headset with a microphone on it and a little speaker on their belt, and they speak into the microphone, and it looks like our children are being raised by robots. And I think that's where we're headed. And I kind of feel like that's the box that we're sort of opening up by heading down this path. And maybe I'm just a ridiculous person, and I've read way too much science fiction novels for my own good, and that may be why I tend to whatever. But yeah. So, yeah. So that's the Friday show. Pretty much in a nutshell. I might cut it a little bit early today. I've got some errands to run, but we're at 20 after 1 now. I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to keep working on this guy for a bit and see if there's any sort of engagement with the chat, and if not, then when I finish painting the flesh on this guy, I will shut it down, because this guy's actually almost done. If I could paint 1 orc a day on stream, by the end of the month, I'd have 30-something orcs painted. So how much more to finish this guy? Not a lot. I mean, really, I'm on his skin now, and this is the other thing about painting Old Hammer is, man, does it paint up faster than contemporary stuff. If I was painting a single one of those Escher that I was painting earlier this week, you know, I certainly don't think I'd be able to get it done. Well, now I've probably been painting them for about an hour. And like I said, having other things around to snack on, and by snack on I mean having other things around to hobby while you're painting a single model is useful, because again, it just, every little bit helps. And then you may need to, like, I need to, when I finish washing him, I need to put him down and let him dry. So I needed something else to do during that time. So I had the other orcs sitting around to work on and finish. So I'll try and keep this on camera. Try and keep his ear on camera. I'm going to have to wash that again, just because of where the ear meets the shoulder pad, but I will do that after all this. So now I'm going to go in. I'm going to grab some of my... So now I'm adding in a little bit of that bright flesh that I do. And we're going to go and do knuckles again. And again, this is where I'm kind of laying it on a little bit thicker. And again, you just kind of mess with your blending, right? Don't be afraid to blend up. Don't be afraid to blend down. It's not like you don't have to color match exactly when doing it this way. Because the end result is that as long as you're using the same palette of colors, your orcs are generally, their orc flesh will come out looking the same. And you don't want them all looking identical anyways, right? They're not all twins. The way orcs grow in the ground and evolve and bubble up from wherever, you know, they could easily be coming from different climates. There might be different other environmental issues to consider that would change their skin color, because their skin color is like, they're a fungus, and their pigment is essentially this algae that grows inside the fungus, and that's what makes them green. So maybe they have more, maybe one orc has more algae than the other orc, right? And you know, so as long as you're using the same general palette, painting orc flesh is not an exact science, as painting any flesh shouldn't be an exact science. On humans, everyone's different, right? Everyone's got different skin tones and different environmental effects that have happened to weather beat their skin, right? Like I'm gonna do like natives of Logan's World, or not necessarily natives of Logan's World, but like you know, guys who have spent a lot of time on Logan's World should have these like golden tans because it's a Badlands, right? So they should all be like, but they should be weather beaten as well and dusty looking. So, yeah. And then the other cool thing about Logan's World, and I've got some cool surprises for it as well. And just some of the stuff that I want to do centered around my introductory story, and then sort of like my ongoing narrative for it will obviously heavily involve my orcs and other things. And I kind of want to build to a larger thing that may even see, you know, these guys leaving the planet and going to another planet, right? Hitching a ride on a Space Hulk. Just hitch a ride on a Space Hulk and head off into wherever. And then some of this, and some more just like that, and then we'll do that lip. So this guy's the boss, man. Nobody messes with the boss. So, except there's a bit of truth to the sci-fi brokenness of humanity. Absolutely. I cannot tell you enough how much, sometimes I like to read sci-fi, and I like the subgenre of sci-fi known as speculative fiction, which tends to be a lot more like Philip K. Dick, and a lot more of the cyberpunk writers, and a lot more of the sort of the more out there guys who were dealing less in the realm of fantasy and classic sci-fi tropes, but were really making speculations. They were really making predictions of how things was going to run, right? Brave New World and things like that, for sure. And I think that some of the best examples of that are, well, Brave New World, which is a populace that's basically controlled by pharmaceuticals, right? And by creating class structures, right, based around those pharmaceuticals and things. And then, like Philip K. Dick, he's got some really wild ideas. Like Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep has a lot of interesting speculative stuff in it, and he's definitely sort of spot on with a lot of that. If you've ever read Solar Lottery, it's actually one of my favorite PKD books, and he has this very interesting concept in it. And the concept is that when you're born, there's a giant wheel, and it's called the Solar Lottery. And on this wheel are a whole bunch of blades, and it's a giant circle, and there are blades, millions and millions of blades. And on each blade is written someone's name. And when you're born, your blade gets added to the circle. And when you die, your blade gets removed to the circle, right? And the circle sits in a giant room, and it's balanced on a like a monofilament thing where, so this circle, this giant disc with all these blades on it, is just sitting. And there's a pendulum that sits above it. And wherever the pendulum points, that person's name has to be the leader of the world. That's basically what happens. And nobody knows where your name is on it. The only name that they'll know is the person who's currently is. So the book sets up that premise, then introduces us to, well, what happens when the disc pivots, right? And it turns, and now the pendulum is pointing at a different name. So the whole story is basically about this guy who one day gets informed, guess what? You've got to take over. You're now the leader. This is how we elect our president. This is how we elect our prime minister or grand poobah or whatever, right? And he doesn't want the job. And there's a good reason why he doesn't want the job, and that's kind of explained in the story. And there's a reason why other people don't want him to have the job, and other people are trying to figure out how they can manipulate him now that he has the job. And it's typical PKD. It's not a long book. It's only a couple hundred pages. It's almost like a novella. It's called Solar Lottery. I wish I still had my old paperback of it, but that's unfortunately, I made a huge mistake back in the 90s and sold off the bulk of my sci-fi paperback collection. Shed a tear. Pour one out for my homies for that. My books that have gone. Hopefully they've gone on to better homes, because I did sell them all at a used bookstore. It's not like I threw them out. I either sold them, and what I couldn't sell I just gave away. So, and I kept some key books, and I wish that had been one of the key books that I kept, because I really liked that story, just because it was so out there. So yeah, if anyone's read Solar Lottery, let me know what you think of it, because it's one of my favorite Philip K. Dick books. Actually, I haven't read a great deal of Philip K. Dick. I read Man in the High Castle. I read Solar Lottery. I read a book of short stories of his, and I've read, of course, Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep. But I haven't read much other Philip K. Dick, so I should. I'm trying to remember what that book of short stories was called. It was like an anthology of like a couple of novellas and some short stories. Again, lost. So basically what I need to finish on him now is I need to finish his skin. So I'm going to do that, because that's easy. And then we will move on to the fur and then the gun and the metallics. And I'm going to try and wrap this up by 2 o'clock. If I can finish painting this entire model in these 2 hours, then we will know that I can paint an entire orc in a sitting before the stream, and that's how we'll roll forward. I'll just pick one of these guys that is sitting over here each day and paint them. And we'll do that next week. I'll paint an orc a day if this works out and if that's what you guys want. If not, let me know, and I can do some prep work on them so I can show you different things. But these guys are pretty basic. Like, there's not a lot of complexity to painting models from this era. I just threw some bolt gun down here, and I'm going to now use it to paint his bolt gun. And he's got some like wires and stuff coming out of it. And what I might have done in the past, and this is kind of a neat thing that I discovered that make contrast paints really fun, is what I would have done in the past is I would have picked some things to do like in a darker metal. I would have picked some things to do in a different shade or added some color, and I may still add some color to this weapon. We'll see. He's got that big red shoulder pad, so I don't want to do too much that'll drag away. But now what I can do is I can take the contrasts in, and if I want to create like a brass or like a dark gold or like a dark metallic, I can do that with the contrasts, and it looks pretty good. Whoops, excuse me, poor little feller. I gotta do his fingernails too, because this is one of the rare 40k orcs that, well, it's one of the rare ones of the last batch that I painted where he's actually got fingernails. Not a lot of them do. Yeah. Just painting. So yeah, I don't know what else to say. He's got some wires coming out of the back there. Let's paint the back of his gun. His little... I guess that would be a bolt pistol. It's a pretty small bolt pistol, but, you know, that's kind of old 40k. Who knows what you never know what you got until you get it. That's what old Kafka always says. Dosadi always says, you never know what you're going to get until you get it. Even if it's what you expect it to be. And we'll do his scabbard here as well. A little straight silver, if you get that reference. All right. Yeah, I think humanity is definitely broken right now. And I don't think we have leadership in place to really address a lot of the core issues. So I don't know what to suggest, except I need to figure out what I'm going to do this fur now. So gray just might be too much of the same. So like a darker brown. Let's go with a darker brown. So let's go with Reaper Master Series. Intense brown. That's intense. That is a brown worthy of being called intense brown. And I'm gonna put that little dab of it near where my leather is, because I'm gonna use some more of this to highlight it up. But we'll start with just the intense brown. And he's got a little bit of intense brown that I'm going to put down here because he's got some fur down here. And who knows what kind of weird gak space yak he killed to get this. I killed a space yak and I took its hide. And again, this is just sort of more sticking within my palette. You can see this brown is a little reddish, so it kind of works, but not really works with how that red shoulder pad is going to be when it's done. But that's about all I need for that. And then that will have to be washed as well, as will his gun. And I'm going to use this brown elsewhere. Actually, no, I'm going to just use leather gray, and I'm just going to put some leather gray here. This is just on the other side of the gun. So it's like a little handle for his little thing there. And then what? You know what's something in here? It looks like that would be something. So we'll throw that in there too. And then, so for this brown, I'm going to let that cure. And I'm going to work on the metal now. So I'm going back to my mix, which is still usable. And I'm going to splat it on. And I'm going to lay it on pretty heavy here. Whatever's left is going to get laid on nice and heavy around the gun there, around the gun barrel. You can't really see that under there. Down on the bottom of the front handle here. And across, and across. Weird. I have a feeling there wasn't a lot of viewers today. I think I had a bit of a hiccup with the stream at the very beginning because you guys are saying that I came on late. I think what happened was that I started streaming, then it stopped streaming, then it started streaming again. And as a result, it's entirely possible that the notification that went out that I'd started streaming would lead to a dead link. I don't know. As I said, right now I am not doing this for any other reason than I just want to sit and do this on camera, share this with some people that seem to enjoy it. I'm certainly looking for growth. So if you guys, if you guys think that some of your friends might enjoy what I do, please share this channel with them, because I would love to eventually increase my viewership. And then that will also help me in producing more content going forward. Certainly, once I get into producing, once I get into the edited and like the produced content, like the battle reports and sort of the stuff that I want to do, essentially the Chronicles aspect of the Eternal Chronicles. Once I get into that, I'll probably be looking at crowdfunding options for, however people out on the YouTubes and the internets out there do that. So I'm gonna grab some of my mustard here, and I'm probably gonna need a bit more of that rust red, because I'm gonna do a shoulder pad now. Boom. So taking the rust red and a tiny bit of the mustard. I'll show you. Rust red, mustard, and I've just added a tiny bit of the mustard to the rust red to make this color, which is the color that I'm going to apply like this around the edges of his big old shoulder pad. Basically just taking a little victory lap here. Now I'm gonna take some of that off so that there's less paint on the brush, and sort of work it here around, and work it here around. Look at that. Get in there, get in there. Now I'm going to do this top because what's going to happen here with this is I'm going to color it, I'm going to brighten it up. So top, on, or he's on top. Maybe it's on top. Wouldn't that make more sense? If he's the boss, he's on top. I wouldn't use this guy as a knob necessarily, but he could certainly think he's the boss. I mean, he thinks he's the boss. His base tat says he's the boss. So you can see I'm bringing that right up. Top on. Let's get a little bit more. And now I'm going to add in a little bit more of the mustard into the rust because I want to hit like that and out like that. And I'm just, you got to keep feathering it, man. And across up here under the ear, and then get most of that paint off on the paper towel and add it up here. So we'll get some nice highlighting. I'm going to leave it darker on the bottom. And that shoulder pad looks pretty good to me. Might need one more quick like yellowing. Another quick yellowing like that. That. Like that. And then so I'm cleaning the brush, switching the brush to the 000, and I'm going to grab some of this mustard. And a little bit of thinner there from my mouth. And I'm going to go over this ever so gently. Putting the yellow on fairly heavily. Because what I will end up doing is probably even going a little bit higher and adding a little bit of white to that yellow so that it really stands out. On top, he says. Top on. So I'm just going to grab some of this tusk ivory because that will be enough to lighten up this yellow so that I can do this, which is go across the... Ooh, that's way too much. Actually, that's about what... Yeah, so pull that over and then just add a little bit... Oh, you can't even see because it's underneath me. It's trapped. It's that migrating brush hand. I got to put those on. All right, there we go. Boom. Let's do some eyes. See if we can't get this thing done. And by thing, I mean this delightful young orc. Eyes. And always I use this nice bright red from Reaper. I think it's even called bright red. It is a very bright red. And drop in one layer. And then on the other eye. So his other eye's a little... His other eye looks like it's all scarred out. So I'm actually not going to give him an eye there because it looks like he looks like he's a one-eyed orc. And that's easy enough to figure out because yeah, there's like a scar that comes down here and then almost like an empty socket. So I don't know if you can see that on camera or not. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this metallic and I'm going to put some here for this little tube that's coming out. And we'll wash that in a minute. And then I think he's got... I don't know what the rest of this stuff would be. It's very... I guess it would just be wires of some kind, but I'm just going to do it like that for right now. And I'm going to wash that because I want that washed down. But right now I'm going to get my lantern yellow. That beside the red, a little spot of it. Not really much at all. Take that lantern yellow. So I don't need much, and I'm just going to highlight his eye. There we go. And now, the pièce de résistance. Some Orc Flesh shade, and the 000 brush, and reverse highlighting, shading. So under his nose, I'm going to get his nostrils. Let's move that up and move him here. I'm going to get around his eyes. So I'm going to do his scarred eye here. I'm going to pull this over like this so it becomes more apparent that he's got a pretty big nasty gash and he's missing an eye. He's a one-eyed orc and he doesn't care to wear an eye patch. You know why? Because he's not a freebooter. He's not a pirate. And all the other orcs would make fun of him and say, "What, you think you're some kind of freebooter? Wearing an eye patch?" You'd be like, "No, I just lost me eye, leave me alone." I assume that would be a conversation they might have. And then they would fight. And then they'd make up. And they'd decide they're both going to go off and kill all the Hoomies. "Oi, wanna go kill some Hoomies with me?" "Oh, I love to kill the Hoomies." So you can see I'm putting a little bit of the wash in his ears too. I find that helps to make them look a little bit more soft and floppy. So there we go. Really all I have to finish is his gun. And his scabbard here, which is easy enough. I can finish that right now. Super, super simple. I'm going to take some of my ashy gray. No. Where is it? Yep. Ashen gray. Reaper. Take a dot of that. And this will probably be the easiest, quickest highlight I do. just going to go across here like that, and then I'm just going to leave that. What? Actually, you know what? I'm wrong. I'm going to drag this down just a little bit. There. And then maybe here. And then I will end up hitting it with a wash again. Now, as for the handle of his knife, I'm going to use the brown that I used for his fur, but I will end up washing and finishing that differently. I'm just using it as the base color because it's nice and simple. And his gun, well, his gun's going to be lead. Like, he's got, I need to do this part here. That's just a little leather strap that's holding his scabbard to his belt. Up here as well, we'll hit that. And then what? In there, just to make sure that's picked out. I guess I gotta stop procrastinating and finish that gun, eh? So, I talked about using contrast for some stuff. So, let's use... Where's the one that I like to use for this? Ah, here we are. Argos Dunes. What you say? Why? Why would you use this? What? Do what? So I'm going to take this, and you see this little like vent on the top of his gun here? I'm going to paint it. I'm going to paint it with this Argos Dunes. Just like that. And it's just to add a bit of color variance and to make it look like maybe it's a different type of metal, like it's some kind of a heat sink metal. The little vent here as well. You know what? I think I'm just going to do Argos Dunes on that as well. Sure, let's see. Yeah, yeah, that was cool. So, again, two really simple little things that I just did with contrast there that will help to break up the gun a bit and make it look a little bit more natural. I'm going to go here around the finger and just get in there with my wash that I still have a little bit of, not too much. In here, I'm going to need some more. So I'm just going to take some dark tone, and this is probably not the brush to use for, I'm going to go up a little bit to this one, this bad boy here, and just dark tone under there, and in there, and in there, and right there, and then over here, I'm going to dark tone under there, and then I'm going to dark tone the handle on his scabbard. Remember I said I'm going to finish the fur differently. So for the fur, I'm actually going to use just straight strong tone. Let's go soft tone. This will make it a little bit more... Oh, I've got a bunch of soft tones still. This will make it a little bit more reddish, maybe a little bit more natural looking. Like at this point he could be a ginger. But the way we're gonna finish that fur is it will look more like some kind of beast, some kind of space yak, and that will have to dry. It's amazing what you can get away with just a competent application of wash. So we'll leave that to dry, and really that's all that has to be finished on this model is the fur. So the fur that's coming off the back there, and then the fur that's coming down between his legs there. Other than that, job's a good one. So we'll leave it at that. So on Monday, I'm going to attempt to finish... you can see, so the flesh on those, see how it's a little bit more drab? That's the Russian uniform green. As opposed to this flesh, which is considerably brighter. horrible view. I'm going to finish the dozen or so that I've painted. Get them just to the point where they're matte sealed. Because that's the last step. The very last step is to hit them with some varnish, with some matte varnish spray. So I got to figure out those bases. And like I said, I'm leaning towards doing something that will look like Badlands. I'd like to put some rubbish on their base even. I have... do I have it here? It's somewhere. I have like basing things, and I have a big tub of watch parts that I initially bought to do bases on my iron hands, my Horus Heresy iron hands. So I had those, so I'll probably do something like that. Put like a little springs and cogs and stuff on their bases, and then paint the rest of their bases in kind of a deserty theme, a Badlands theme. So it may be the same if you go and look again. Go and look at eternalchronicles.ca. That's the link up there. Oh, I think that's whatever. There's a link down in the show notes, I'm sure. And go to the gallery hall and go to the Hall of the Goblin King, and you'll see my Iron Jaws for Age of Sigmar. So something like that for the bases. Those have skulls and which I'll probably do. So I may try and match those bases, but just add some tech to them, add some technology bits and stuff to them, so it looks like Logan's World is essentially Mad Max, Planet Mad Max, right? Which is what we want. Yeah. So yeah. So I think that's going to be it. So I'm Christian. This is the Eternal Chronicles, and hopefully people watched the last hour and almost 48 minutes. But I'm going to end the stream now. So, ha-cha-cha-cha. I'll talk to y'all later. I'll be back tomorrow. Same Orc time, same Orc channel, right here on the Eternal Chronicles.